Hi, everybody. My name is Laetitia. I run a communication agency that is specialized in producing online content for big companies worldwide. 2 years ago, a client called me. He wanted me to create a compelling equity story to attract young people to invest in his blue-chip company. It proved out to be impossible. Big companies have a big problem. Young people won't invest in them anymore. Instead, young people will invest in people. And by invest in people, I mean literally invest in people, not the HR blah blah way. Let me give you some facts. 45% of Generation Y think investment products are overly complex to confuse the average investors. And there are 46% to say they will never feel comfortable investing in the stock market. Okay, this is what they say, but what do they do? Actually, they do what they say. There are less than 13% to have stocks in listed companies. And their share aversion is sharply growing since 2001. Okay, so big companies may disappear, starved from capital by the young generation. Before giving a death certificate to these big companies, they are my clients after all, I decided to give them a second chance. I did some academic research. This is where I met virtually Ronald Coase. Virtually because the poor guy died last year. He was 103 years old, so I think it's okay. In 1937, he wrote a book called The Nature of the Firm. And in its book, he answered this very question. Why do firms exist? According to Ronald, firms exist to decrease transaction costs. Transaction costs. The geek in me is now pretty alarmed. Because if there is something we know, is that in the digital age, transaction costs are crashing. They are crashing. Let's just give me an example of that you may be already familiar with. Take Kodak and Instagram. Kodak used to employ up to 145,000 people, but it filed for bankruptcy in January 2012. Whereas the very same year, Instagram was bought back by Facebook for $1 billion. Do you know how many employees Instagram at that time? 13 people. 13 people for Instagram, 145,000 for Kodak. Okay. Bye-bye, big companies. So, but what will the young generation do when they want to invest in an idea they believe in and they want to profit from? What will they do? The crowdfunding business boom may give us a clue. But I think we can take it a notch further. In a period where a young people, when you want to travel, doesn't rent a hotel room, but rent a bed in a friend's place, I think they will soon want to invest in one another. There will be a human stock exchange. Human stock exchange. These three words are quite scary. They scared myself. So what I did is that I typed them in Google. I had 3 results, only 3 results, 3 hits. The first hit was this red-eyed guy. Let me introduce you to Félix Fox. He is the creator of Xavier Dorisson, a French comic book writer who released a comic book called Human Stock Exchange in 2011. Look at the watch of Félix. You can see his price, which is constantly changing, and the watch is monitoring all his vital statistics. Okay, but it's some kind of Western sci-fi, isn't it? Well, not really. Because the second and third hit were coming from India. Naranta Narayan wrote a blog piece in 2006, where he described in 5 pages what a human stock exchange can be. And the third hit was even more interesting. It is from a young Indian girl, a 16-year-old girl in New Delhi, that has made a slideshow called The Human Stock Exchange, when she asked the state and NGOs to finance such a human stock exchange, because for her that's the only way to finance the dreams of Indian youth. And actually, celebrities have paved the way. I don't know if you remember, but in 1997, David Bowie issued a 55 million loan, and other musicians have followed. Iron Maiden, Rod Stewart, etc. In 2004, Anna Leibovitz, the celeb photographer, did the same. And it's booming again. Look at this guy, Arian Foster. He was supposed to hit the market in November 2013. Unfortunately for him, he broke his back 1 week before his IPO. Is it over? Not really. His peers, Davis Vernon, hit the market last week, in April 28. And if you want to know how he performed, he has done plus 50% since his IPO day. He is now listed $11.5 US per share. It won't come as a surprise to Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman, in 1954, wrote a piece on education and its funding. And he said that stock in student would be profitable and could be a good way to finance education. And it is true, I don't know if there are some auditors in the room, that if you look at all the gadgets and apps that guru Nicola Felton is using to monitor his every move, you can now imagine that human beings are more traceable, quantifiable, analyzable than any company. This is what companies like PAVE have understood. PAVE has been founded in December 2012. On PAVE website, you can either invest in an individual, let's say give 50,000 grand to Clara, and get 3 to 4% of her future income, or you can invest in a bundle of people. Choose, what do you prefer? Women entrepreneurs, tech leaders, Columbia graduates, environmental fighters? You can choose. And you have magazines like Forbes that are publishing stories like 7 tips to succeed your self-IPO. Regulation is on its way as well. Senator Marco Rubio has introduced legislation this very April to define details of such investment vehicle that he called income share agreement. For those of you that will be interested in listing your children, I give you some details. The maximum length of the contract is 30 years, and the maximum share of the income you can give is 15%. Okay, so this is really happening. But what is it? Is it modern slavery? Is it indentured servitude back? For those who don't know, indentured servitude was a system back in the 18th century where young people, mostly British and German, were paying their passage to the New World by working 3 or 4 years to an employer. I don't think so, actually. I think we are used now to debt, and we think it's okay. And we think that equity in people is evil. I do quite feel the contrary. Debt is slavery, and equity may be the path for freedom. Let me tell you why. In debt, the risk is all on the borrower's side. The lender has no risk. The borrower has a lot of risk. If he's not doing well, he will not be able to reimburse. He will have his home taken, etc. In equity, the risk is equally shared between the people that have the money and give the money and the people that is receiving the money. So look at this guy. You first thought they were happy because the Champions League final. They are not. They are congratulating each other for your IPO. They have massively invested in you with a massive leverage. They finance your education. And for the rest of your life, they will take their dividends, i.e. income tax. Joke aside, I think it is worth looking at that and saying that maybe debt is not the solution. So let me jump to my conclusion, which will be fourfold. One, projects like human stock exchanges will happen. There are lots and lots of details to work out. There will be failures, there will be bankruptcies, but the idea is here to stay. Why? And this is my point too. Because the need is here. 1.2 trillion US dollar in student debt in the United States. And it's not only the United States. One student out of 3 in Wales, in Europe, say they cannot afford going to universities. So the need is here. And 3, the technology is here. In Milton Friedman days, such contract would have been enforceable. With the technology, with the digitalization of money, you will now be able to control your minority shareholding. And 4, ethically, it is very difficult to argue that debt is a better system than this current one. Thank you.